Another week in the XFL, fellas, and another shift in our power rankings. It's like every week it's something different. There's no consistency with this league, I swear. And the one consistent thing is that our number 8 team in Seattle seems like they're always in the game, but they just can't get over the hump. And I'm just kind of filibustering as long as I can so Pastel has to wear that mask as long as possible. Pastel, they caused 3 turnovers against the Houston Roughnecks, but the turnover mask wasn't quite enough for the Seattle Dragons this week.
The turnover mask, it almost worked. They made PJ Walker look human for a minute. And I'm going to take this off because I'm sweating pretty bad right now. But, man, that took me like 10 minutes to get on, by the way. If you actually watch the game, it took him about 10 minutes to put it on as well. So now I kind of feel his pain. But, hey, honestly, I thought Seattle looked good. They turned the ball over. They made PJ Walker have more turnovers than he's had all year by far. Was it 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, and a fumble?
Yeah. Yep.
BJ Daniels, I thought he was the spark that offense needed by far. I mean, you look at his stats, they weren't necessarily like mind-boggling. I mean, he was 14-22, 114 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Nothing that's going to like blow him off the stat sheet. But if you watch the game, every play was positive yards. And they were sustaining drives for probably 8, 10, 12 minutes, and it kept PJ Walker off the field. Now, ultimately, that didn't cause the W. But I think there's a lot of positive signs leaving that game saying, hey, we can use this momentum and reel off a few wins. The question right now, is it too late for Seattle? Personally, I had them a little bit higher in my power rankings because I do think some teams like Dallas might be a little bit lower, but overall, pretty well, defensively well. BJ Daniels, I think, is the spark they needed. The running game, if you watch the game, having that dual threat at quarterback, it had the linebackers on their heels, and they can never hit the gap and fill it. And so you saw the running backs hitting, 4 or 5 yards a carry as well. So hopefully they keep this momentum up and they carry it over to the next week and get a couple of W's. Hopefully put you back in that playoff picture.
Gless, the one thing that really stood out to me with Seattle, and it's been kind of a theme over the last few weeks, is it's just kind of the flow, I guess, of the offense. And Jim Zorn and him being comfortable with the playbook, because we know that Mike Riley was supposed to be calling the plays for this team. And right now it's Jim Zorn calling the plays, and he just doesn't seem like he's very comfortable with the playbook. And it's he's kind of frantically trying to go from play to play, figuring out what play to call. And I'm not necessarily saying that he's calling poor games, but it's taking him a while to get the calls in. So it's kind of, I think, having this domino effect, if you will, of not really allowing the offense to really settle in, kind of, for BJ Daniels to kind of see what the defense is showing him and make adjustments when necessary. So I think that's really a hindrance on an offense that really lacks offensive weapons. So you need as much help as you can get, and I don't think the play calling is really, and just the lack of getting it in consistently and quickly is helping.
Yeah, it just sounds like when he's calling a play, a little bit of lack of confidence in it, just kind of looking down at his play sheet, just trying to figure out, where to go next. If you watch, somebody like Norm Chow or Chuck Long, when they're calling a play, a lot of confidence. They seem to know what they're trying to do, what they're trying to set up for. Doesn't seem like that's happening a lot in Seattle. The running game, showed some life there for a little bit. I know the stats for Farrow and Williams don't look as good, but a lot of that has to do because BJ Daniels is now added into that mix. Right. But it's kind of the same old story with the offense, guys. I mean, they can't get a lot in the passing game going. Now they were extremely efficient on offense. They got down to the red zone. They scored touchdowns on 4th down, on 3rd down. They were efficient, but just not enough opportunities down there. So, 8's probably the right spot for them. A
team that seems like they're in every game, but they're just not getting over that hump. They stay at that one-win mark, and they're desperately in need of a win, especially with LA winning last weekend, trying to get that number 2 spot in the West. So let's go to Dallas at number 7. And this is a team that I think you can make a real strong argument, Kenny, that they could have been the number 8 team, especially considering their current situation at quarterback. I know you and I picked the Guardians, I think solely based on the fact that Philip Nelson was taking 100% snaps for the Dallas Renegades last weekend.
Yeah, 100%. That was the sole. I even said on the thing, if Matt McGloin had started, I would have picked Dallas, but solely because Philip Nelson, I just do not think he is a starting caliber quarterback, even in the XFL. I don't like his track record. I don't like anything he's done. And personally, Dallas was number 8 on my power rankings this week. I just have a really hard time seeing where they go from here. They just made a personnel switch. If you haven't heard, Hal Mummy is now an offensive analyst, and Jeff Jagosinski has been promoted to the offensive coordinator position. So a little bit of turmoil on the coaching side of things. Hopefully, I guess they're trying to find a spark. We know Jags is a little different than Hal Mummy. He's not quite an air raid guy, so I'm sure we're going to see more running the ball, a little less passing. So maybe that fits Philip Nelson a little bit better. I just don't see it. If I'm a Dallas fan, I'm very, very concerned moving forward at the quarterback situation. And like we talked about with Landry Jones coming back, I'm even concerned with when he comes back because he's not going to be anywhere near full health. So I think Dallas has some real concerns moving forward. And the fact that BJ Daniels looked at least competent at quarterback made me put Seattle above them and made me put Dallas at 8.
Yeah, I think they're in big trouble. I'm 100% with Kenny. I actually had them eighth on my list because I really don't believe in Philip Nelson. I think the removal of Hal Mummy to now as an offensive analyst, for some reason they just came out and looked very uninspired on Saturday as well. I think this team is in a lot of trouble and they're going to score. They're going to have a really tough time scoring points the rest of the year, I think, just with a lot of these dramatic switches here in the middle of the season.
And we talk about how Dallas needs to run the football. Guys, Philip Nelson threw it 49 times. 49 times. Goodness
You're not going to win.
Not good.
Ever.
No.
Never.
No,
Never.
It's crazy because this team is, I think we all agree, talent-wise, could be a championship contender. And I think with Landry Jones in there, they were, even with the rustiness and the turnovers, the difference in a Landry Jones-led offense compared to a Philip Nelson, it was just so drastic. Obviously, Hal Mummy had his concerns with Philip Nelson in terms of opening up the playbook. So they have a lot of things to sort out. Obviously, the coaching changes and at the quarterback position. So Dallas falls all the way to number 7 this week. We're going to go to number 6, a team that was right there in it. It looks like they may have found their quarterback in the corn dog, but Tampa Bay is coming at number 6. They almost squeaked out a win versus LA. They looked really good in the first half, Glass. But LA came storming back in the second half, and a couple turnovers late cost Tampa a much-needed victory, with the East bunching up with DC getting a victory last weekend.
Yeah, the numbers look great if you look at their team offensive stat, 434 yards of total offense. Pretty decent inside their red zone and the goal to go. They ran the ball pretty decent, but they really got away with they got away from it really in the second half. I really would have liked to seen them establish the run there in the second half in order to allow Cornelius even some more plays downfield. But besides saying that, guys, I think that they have found a spark on offense. I mean, they've scored 30-plus points for the second week in a row. They're going to be an extremely tough team to beat. This is, had they won, they'd have been right there in the East. So I like a lot of what I saw on offense. I just would have liked to seen them commit a little bit more to the run game there in the second half.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how they evolve the offense around Cornelius, because they talked about it going, I believe in the halftime last night, where they went no huddle and Cornelius led them right down the field and scored a touchdown. And they kind of ran a little bit more fast paced no huddle in the second half. And he looked a lot more comfortable. And they asked him, they said, "Hey, you seem like you thrive in that." And he goes, "Well, that's what we did at Oklahoma State." Yeah. And so he really seemed to, I know the third quarter was a little rough all around for the offense, but when they got in moments where they needed to make plays and they needed to get down the field quick, I mean, you saw they scored a touchdown late in the game and they were driving to score a game tying touchdown till right there at the end of the game. And everything was fast paced. They were clicking, they were moving. I was really excited to see Tampa kind of evolve their offense and really make their quarterback comfortable. Did he play perfect? No, he played like a rookie. He had some rookie mistakes for sure. But I think if you're Tampa, you've got to be extremely excited that you seem to have some continuity at quarterback and a guy who's going to be able to lead the team for sure.
Yep. On the defensive side of the ball, it seems like this secondary is good for giving up one long touchdown per game.
Yep.
They
gave up
sure that up.
And
they gave up a bunch of them last night. They started off really well. Really had Josh Johnson kind of on his toes. He was looking, kind of frantic back there, making some poor decisions. But, especially as the game wore on, big play after big play downfield. Just it really cost this team in the end. And Cornelius, he definitely looks comfortable. He looks like a leader. It looks like the team is kind of rallying around him. But the only concerning thing for me is that 2 out of the last 3 weeks, he's thrown a pick within the last drive, the last couple minutes of the game where the game is on the line. Which, not to knock on him, he's a rookie quarterback. You're going to expect those kind of mistakes. And I don't know whose fault it really was between him and the receiver. There was some miscommunication.
It was definitely
miscommunication. We don't know if it was him or the receiver, but it was just, terrible timing to have miscommunication for the Vipers. So they come in at number 6. We're going to go to number 5. We actually had a tie for 5 and 4. The tiebreaker went to the DC Defenders because they beat the New York Guardians. But the New York Guardians, Pastel, your boy Luis Perez, looks like he's rallying the troops, bringing them back from the dead. A couple weeks ago, we thought this team was on the brink of disaster. And now they're right back in the thick of it, man, for that second spot. Oh, actually, they're all tied 3 and 2 for 1 and 2. So it's kind of a logjam for the top of the East, and New York is right there in the thick of it.
Yep, the new president of New York, Luis Perez. He,
yeah.
So at first, when I was watching the game, I was trying to find the things I didn't like about him, and I left that game actually very impressed by the Guardians. You look at that whole entire team, just balance all the way through it. Do I think the quarterback is a top, 3 or 4 quarterback? No, you guys know my opinions on him, but he's a very efficient quarterback at this point. He was 16 for 30, 229 yards at a TD and a pick, overall 76% QB rating. The running game evenly spread out. Victor had 58, Stockton had 41. And then even Perez was getting out there, had a few runs. As much as I say he's very immobile, he actually was kind of mobile throughout the game. And then, goodness gracious, that defense, guys. Like, remember how I was telling you guys last weekend, like, if they can create a few more turnovers, this team is going to be hard to stop.
Yeah.
They had 2-3 interceptions against Philip Nelson? Oh, man. So, this team, I left this game as these might be one of the most overall complete teams in the XFL.
Well, we've been saying, and Riley Gless and myself have been preaching the last couple of weeks. If New York's offense could just get it together, that defense is probably the best in the league, if not one of the top 2 best in the league. But they've been on the field 3/4 of the games leading up to when Perez finally took over as quarterback. So the fact that they are playing this well and their offense is clicking is really, really good for New York. And I got to say, the biggest thing I think that Perez brings to the table, besides his leadership, you can tell he does a lot of good things in the huddle. He does a lot of good things on the field. He commands respect of the team. But the biggest thing is he makes the defense respect his arm and his ability to throw the ball downfield. They can't cheat. They have to play him straight up because he does, for all whatever flaws or rawness that he has as a player, the one thing he can do is throw the ball downfield. So that's, and throw it well. So that's one thing I've noticed that's helped with New York's offense with him, is I think it just gives him a little bit more space to operate.
The biggest thing for me is that the Guardians, which they weren't doing at the beginning of the season, they're finally getting that running game going. And we knew that something that they've been wanting to do since the start of the season. It's a big part of their identity as a team. And Victor has been he had a nice couple last weeks, and then Stockton was very impressive, especially on that kickoff return as well. So in the running game and special teams, he really stepped up. So that's a good sign moving forward for the Guardians, getting that rushing game going to take some pressure off Luis Perez to make plays. So let's go to number 4 in the DC Defenders. Guys, I don't even know what to make of this team. I guess just whenever they're at home, pick the Defenders, and whenever they're away, pick whoever's playing the Defenders at this point, because I can't even wrap my head around what I'm seeing. This defense they came back to life. I don't know if it's the energy of the crowd at Audi Field. I don't know if it's the beer snake. I don't know what it is. But this defense was getting after it. They were making plays. They were making Tamu very uncomfortable. They were still giving up, a lot of yards in the running game. But especially in the secondary, they were just kind of, making it tough for Tamu to really feel comfortable getting the ball downfield. And then it's always like they're good for a special teams play as well at home. They had the block punt for a touchdown. I mean, they've had one of those every time that they've been at home. So, Gless, I don't know what to make of this team. I don't even know how to really analyze. Like, I guess moving forward, we're gonna have to, when we do our power rankings in the future, we're gonna have to have 2 slots, one for the away defenders and one for the home defenders, because it's like 2 different teams.
Yeah, especially at the quarterback position, and you saw how drastic the offense changed when they put Tyree Jackson in there. And it's really a lot of the quarterback run game, a ton of RPOs. I mean, I felt like they were running essentially an RPO with a zone read every single play, a lot of screen passes, not a lot downfield. So they really wanted to shorten the game. And they did that successfully, and they ran the ball pretty successfully. I mean, about 230 yards of a total rushing. But the defense was the story of the day, guys. 4 sacks made Te'amu look extremely uncomfortable. But I think in high leverage situations, they came up with big stops, right? St. Louis was 0 for 2 on 4th down. St. Louis was 0 for 3 in the red zone, and they held St. Louis to 4 for 16 on 3rd down conversion. So the defense came up with big plays when it needed to come up with them.
Yeah, and Pastel, I talked about this, or I asked Pep Hamilton this in the press conference post game, how good it felt to get the running game going finally. Jarrell Presley comes in. He's the first 100-yard rusher for the DC Defenders. So that, if you look at Pep Hamilton's style of play, his head probably was going to explode if he didn't get the running game going up to this point. They finally get it going with Jarrell Presley getting over 100 yards.
Yeah, it's kind of like that B.J. Daniels effect. As soon as they took Cardell out and put Tyree Jackson in there, which I never knew was a scrambling quarterback. I'm not saying he is, but he did have,
I'm still not convinced
close
of
to
that,
32 yards rushing.
Yeah.
I mean, the moment he got in there, Presley was just ripping off 8, 10, 12-yard carries. And it's like, well, first off, I'm Cardell. I'm like, where the heck was that when I was QB, man?
That's right.
But that offense changed when Jackson got in, and I think it's because that little bit of that dual threat combination for Jackson. Again, the linebackers had to stay on their heels, couldn't attack the gap, and that gave Presley that extra second to make a one-cut, get upfield, and that completely changed the game. I mean, there's nothing Tyree Jackson did on the air, to be fair. I mean, he was accurate, but he only threw it 14 times.
Yeah. I think if this was like a week basis, like just off of their last game, obviously this was a huge win. And it may be a turning point in their season, beating St. Louis, who I know all 4 of us on this show thought was going to come in and get the victory. But if you look at the overall, I guess, scope of things and just how they've looked on the road, it's too early to get them in. There's no way you can put them in the top 3 right now. They have to prove that they can win on the road before they get up into that tier. So right now they're kind of right on the outside.
Competitive on the road.
Competitive at least.
They got to be competitive on the road.
They've been extremely impressive at home, but they got to find that consistency on the road as well. So they're going to come in at number 4. And number 3 is a team that they started off slow. We know they have talent. They're battling injuries, but man, the LA Wildcats guys, especially in the second half, Josh Johnson is a top 2 quarterback in this league, and he proved that last night, Kenny.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say I think PJ Walker and Josh Johnson are easily your front runners for MVP candidates so far through the season. And man, is there a team in the league that can pile up points quicker than LA does when they get revved up? Because I swear against DC and against Tampa, they just piled on points at a breakneck pace when they finally got going. And they're very impressive. When they are on, they might be the most impressive team in the league over Houston. I unfortunately, they haven't put together a full game yet, but the glimpses they have where they've put together like the TC game and then this game against Tampa is highly impressive, and they're very tough to stop through the ground and through the air. Josh Johnson's throwing depth, and that's just without Nelson Spruce too. So hopefully when they get him back, it adds another element to their game because he's a top 5 receiver in the league. But Trey McBride looked good. Jordan Smallwood looked good. They spread the ball around very well yesterday. A lot of guys catching balls, a lot of guys catching touchdowns. Carter looked good again. Running the ball and being a playmaker out of the backfield. I was just very, very impressed with the way they played offense. And again, I hate to keep repeating this, but when they are hot, they might be the best team in the league when they're rolling with all 8 cylinders.
Consistency. That's the thing with this team is just it's not even just from game to game, but even within the game itself, being consistent for 2 full halves, putting a whole game together. This team has not done it yet. And we know the talent's there, and if they get fully healthy, they could be a scary, scary opponent for the Houston Roughnecks come playoff time. So
the coaches need to stop arguing with each other and just call it the play. That's all they got to do.
That's right.
Was that not just gold TV? Like
that was great
That's
television.
What makes the
that was
XFL
so awesome.
so freaking entertaining to watch.
and I loved it because he had it, and then he's like, he said his piece, and then he just slammed it down.
Slammed
like,
the
Hands
phone.
up on him.
Right.
Then they have a live shot of Norm Chow, and he's just like, what the hell just happened?
No man deserves that.
But those kind of things happen in football,
Yep.
you know, in the heat of the game. It's just the XFL is
run
opening
high.
opening that window, opening that door, and letting you see inside what's actually going on in the game. And it's freaking fantastic television.
I love it.
So
Absolutely.
LA comes in at number 3. Number 2, I know they lost, but the St. Louis BattleHawks, I still believe, are the most complete team in the East. And they had so many opportunities in this game last weekend, but they just couldn't score touchdowns, Gless. And I know you've talked about this throughout the season. They've been very inconsistent in the red zone. There's times where they've looked really good in the red zone, but then there's times like this game versus DC where between the 20s they're impressive, but once they get to that 20-yard mark, they're just not converting touchdowns.
Yeah, they just, pretty much for the first time all year, nobody made a big play when somebody needed to make a big play on high leverage downs. I said a little bit earlier, 4 for 16 on third down, 0 for 2 on fourth down, 0 for 3 in the red zone, and that's huge. Especially they were playing a team in DC that kicked, they did get 1 touchdown. But for the most part, the defense, held its own. If you would have told Jonathan Hayes coming into the game that, hey, you're going to hold DC to 15 points, he would have taken that any day of the week. So to me, it was a lot about the offense just not finishing drives. And a lot of that just may come with just a little bit more experience at the quarterback position as Te'amu gets a little bit more comfortable. And it was a different flow of the game for the BattleHawks too. If you guys remember, a lot of these games for the BattleHawks, they've gotten out to big starts. Fast starts where they've really been able to pile on teams quickly. That wasn't the case here in DC. So I thought we saw just a little bit of chink in the armor for the BattleHawks. I'm with you, Riley. I'm still a believer in this team. I think they're extremely complete. They just happened to when it got down to the red zone, they just weren't able to execute for whatever reason this week.
It's crazy, Gless. It's crazy because you look at the running game. Jones, 5.4 yards a carry. Michael, 5.8 yards a carry. Tamu, 6.2 yards per carry. They were effective running the ball just like they've been all season long. It's just not converting those touchdowns, and that's going to cost you. And that's what the difference between them and the number 1 team in our power rankings has been for the past however many weeks in the Houston Roughnecks. Even with the slow start, even with P.J. Walker, Kenny, having probably his worst game, at least in terms of turnovers, he still throws for 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. Cam Phillips is on the receiving end of 2 of them. It's just like, can this offense at this point be stopped? Because we haven't seen it in a full game yet.
The only way it can be stopped is if they stop themselves. Case in point, the pick. It was almost a pick 6, where PJ Walker threw the ball into the flat right to the Seattle defenseman, who even in the interview was like, I can't believe he even threw that. Like that's the only way they can be stopped is if they stop themselves. And the offense. We've said this for 5 weeks now. It's the best offense in football. They make you, and the best thing they do is they put pressure on the other team's offense because points are at such a premium. They make the other team get a little bit out of their game plan, especially if they get up fast. So I don't think they can. I think they're going to be number 1 for a while. I think the only team, in my opinion, right now that can challenge, that can beat Houston in a full game is LA. I think they're the only team that's shown to be capable enough. I think the other teams can hang, and they have hung around, but they just haven't been able to finish Houston off. And I don't think other teams have the capability to do that. The only team I think that can would be LA, and that's solely because I think Josh Johnson is such a stud.
Yeah. Kenny, I think it's a good point. If you look at our top 3 currently, they're the top 3 quarterbacks so far in the league, at least in my opinion. So I think quarterback play is just the big difference here. P.J. Walker's playing at such a high level. Even when he has a down game, he's still throwing for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. So when you get high quarterback play, especially in the XFL, you're going to find ways to win. And we're seeing the teams that have had a Rolodex of quarterbacks or struggling quarterbacks kind of finding their way, going lower and lower in our power rankings. But Houston comes in at number 1 again. I don't think is any surprise to anybody. So I want to hear from you guys, the fans. What is your power rankings going into week 6? Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Put them in the comment section below. Stay involved in the conversation at XFL Chalk Talk. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell below. Sorry, Seattle fans. We don't hate you. We love the turnover mask, but offense has to pick it up. But so those are our power rankings. Leave yours in the comment section below, and we'll see what happens come week 6 of the XFL.
What's up, football fans? This is Coach Gless. Want to know how to listen to all of our segments on the go? You can subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform today. And don't forget to rate us and give us that 5-star review.